It's bad enough that Nebraska lost yesterday. It's even worse when you consider the fact that the Huskers got incredibly banged up. One of the best players for Nebraska is expected to miss the entire rest of the season, but it's not just him. 3 other crucial players are expected to miss some time. So in today's video, I'm going to go over this big-time Nebraska injury update, who's out for the Huskers, who needs to step up in their absence, where do we go from here, my honest criticism of Matt Rhule and this coaching staff, and so much more. So really quick, this is going to be a big-time injury update. Hit that like button if you're having a good Saturday, because I know I am. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Listen, this is the only channel that posts daily Husker content, win or loss. We keep it very honest here. Best family Husker YouTube. We're getting so close to 14K. Help us at 14,000. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. It's bad enough that Nebraska lost yesterday. Again, we got dominated. We got blown out, embarrassed on national television. We showed our true colors. That's bad enough. But it's even worse when you consider the fact that some of our few good players got banged up and are expected to miss extended periods of time. So I want to get things started with one of the bright points on our offensive line. Really the only good player on our offensive line all year long. The only guy we could hang our hat on, who is expected to miss the entire rest of the season. This is Rocco Spindler. Now, he left the ball game in the second drive. Honestly, that was our best drive of the game, was, again, our second drive in the first quarter. But Rocco Spindler, he walked off the field. He said he broke something in his hand. He did not stay in the stadium. He went directly to the hospital to have his hand evaluated. He did not come back in the ball game. And then after the game, he was seen in a huge cast that he broke multiple ligaments in his hand. And it's expected that he will miss the entire rest of the season. So Rocco Spindler, unfortunately, he's played pretty well for Nebraska throughout this year. He held it down at right guard. Pretty quality transfer coming in from Notre Dame. But again, broke something in his hand. It was a bang-bang play. I think he may have had his hand even stepped on is what happened. So unfortunate news with Rocco Spindler, just, adds insult to injury. After he left the ball game, it's no shocker that the offensive line completely collapsed, because he really was the glue that was holding it all together. Because, again, he was our most productive offensive lineman, not only in the pass pro, but in the running game as well. So when we started, again, putting guys like Teddy Prohaska, Turner Corcoran, and Tyler Knack got some snaps, that's when it got really ugly. Because you think the starters are bad, and trust me, the starters are bad, right? Gunnar Gatula played awful, Pritchett played awful, but the depth is even worse. That's really the problem with Nebraska's offensive line, right? We don't have any depth to begin with either. So we can't bench some of these terrible players because you thought Gunnar Gatula is bad. Oh, you don't want to see who's behind him. You don't want to see the guys in the third string, the second string. They're even worse. So Rocco Spindler will now be out for the rest of the season. We're probably going to start Turner Corcoran at right guard. That's not a solution. Turner Corcoran played awful yesterday. He played pretty decent versus Maryland, but he played awful yesterday. We know what Turner Corcoran is. He's been here for 6 years. He's not a good player. We've seen Tyler Knack. Tyler Knack played yesterday. He gave up a sack on, I believe, his second snap of the game. He's not very good. You got some younger guys here who are completely inexperienced, like Jason Machachak, Jake Peters, Sam Sledge, Grant Brooks, all those guys, were decent recruits coming out of high school, but haven't done anything since they've got to Nebraska. So that's really the problem with this offensive line. We don't have any depth to begin with. So, but I will say this, I am excited to see who gets some more opportunities, because I do believe that Grant Brooks could be a good player long-term, or like a Present Tomo could be a good player long-term. So again, they need to get some reps, they need to get some snaps. But right now, again, the only good offensive line we had to begin with is out for the rest of the year. So really unfortunate news there with Rocco Spindler. And then talking about Elijah Pritchett. Pritchett got banged up once again yesterday. He was going into the Minnesota ball game with a hurt ankle. Got hurt versus Michigan State. He barely played against Maryland. He was supposed to not play versus Maryland, but he ended up giving it a go. He played okay, gave up a couple sacks here and there. That's the Elijah Pritchett experience. And then, of course, had his ankle injury going into yesterday. He went down twice on the ball game before he got suspended, before he got kicked out for the stupid targeting call because he was being a numbskull. But Elijah Pritchett, he gave up a sack. He gave up a holding penalty. Did not play well with his ankle. Went down multiple times. So it's expected that potentially Elijah Pritchett will not play next week versus Northwestern, and may not even play versus USC because that ankle is not getting any better. And once again, it's a lingering injury. So again, it's the same conversation. Like, if Elijah Pritchett goes out, he's a terrible player. So, it's not like the worst thing in the world. But again, we don't have any better players than him. That's how bad this offensive line is. If Elijah's not playing, guess who's going to come back from the starting lineup? Teddy Prohaska. And we know how bad Teddy is. And Teddy was bad yesterday once again. So, again, Elijah Pritchett, we'll have to watch and monitor the ankle, but it's just not getting any better for him. And then Vincent Shavers, wanted to mention this. He was a surprise scratch yesterday. He was not on the injury report. It was never talked about by the media. It was never talked about by Matt Rhule. Now, I told you guys a couple of days before the ball game that Vincent Shavers, I'd watch out for him because he's been dealing with some hamstring issues. Now, he was not out yesterday because of a hamstring. Of course, it was reported by Matt Rhule in the postgame. I confirmed this with Vincent's father, that Vincent had surgery on his thumb on Tuesday, that it was incredibly sore, it was incredibly painful, and they decided last second to just not give him the green light, and that he'll sit out this game and then he'll get ready to go for Northwestern. So Vin Shavers, not something we should worry about going forward. He should be back next week versus the Wildcats. If not, then he'll definitely be back for USC. But again, he's had some hand issues. He's definitely had some hamstring issues. So this is just the best move long term. We would have lost this game even with Vincent out there. So no reason to risk it. No reason to even have him in there if it's just going to make it worse. And then, talking about some other guys who, simply put, we need these guys to come back from injury. Malcolm Hartzog. We need him back now. We just do. Because this secondary is crumbling by the game. I told you guys yesterday, Donovan Jones cannot play here anymore. He can't play here, not this year. I'm not giving up on his entire career, but Donovan Jones has been barbecue chicken in the secondary. I don't know if you guys noticed this. It happened the last 3 weeks. Michigan State, Maryland, and yesterday versus Minnesota. Every single team that goes up against us targets Donovan Jones because he's a liability in both man and zone coverage. His tackling has regressed, his physicality has regressed, and he's oftentimes in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Okay, he's the one who's replacing Malcolm Hartzog. So we need Hartzog to come back, and if Hartzog can't come back, again, putting a guy like Larry Tarver, putting a guy like Amari Sanders, we're just tired of the Donovan Jones experiment because he's not the guy that the coaching staff hypes him up to be. He wasn't even that good in the Pinstripe Bowl versus Boston College. That's where this is all coming from. So again, we have a lot of young players in the secondary who are nipping at, the bud for opportunities. Let's get him reps because at this point, Donovan Jones is not any good. But hopefully, Malcolm Hartzog can come back sooner rather than later because we need him badly. And I'm not acting like Malcolm Hartzog is a perfect player. He has some flaws too, but he's certainly better than Donovan Jones, and he's certainly better than Marcus Buford as well, who's another conversation for another day. And also, I'm on the exact same ground Demitrius Bell. The wide receivers have not showed up these past 3 weeks. Dane Key had 0 receptions, 0 yards yesterday. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had that stat line. That cannot happen. We're paying this guy $1 million. He's supposedly one of the best receivers coming out of the SEC. He's not done anything, right? And it's not only his fault, right? Dylan Raiola has some huge vision issues. Again, Dylan Raiola is a deeply flawed quarterback. We've talked about that. But at this point, we just need more bodies in the receiver corps. Okay, we need Demitrius Bell to come back, give us some reps, hopefully can take some snaps away from Dane Key or Jacory or Nyziah when they're not feeling it, when they're tired, because clearly this receiver corps is part of the problem as well. So hopefully Demitrius can work his way back. I'm expecting maybe a USC return. Best case scenario. Best case scenario, he'll be back by USC. All right, those are the crucial injury updates. Again, we have a couple other ones, like Dylan got a little bit banged up yesterday. As you'd imagine, he had 9 sacks on him. He got hit, right? He's dealt with those knee issues, shoulder issues from time to time. So that's something to monitor with Dylan. Multiple defensive linemen got banged up and nothing too serious. So there's going to be a lot of guys who are questionable going into Northwestern. And again, I'll keep you posted with the latest on the channel when we get more clarification. I want to end the video with this. I've been doing a lot of thinking about yesterday's game. It's one of those ball games that you like to forget as soon as possible, but you just can't, right? It has a bad taste in your mouth, right? You can't forget it because it was so eye-opening to all of us. I want to pose this question to you. When did you know the game was over? When did you know Nebraska was going to lose? I knew Nebraska was going to lose at the end of the first quarter when we were up 3-0. You may ask, Wilson, how did you know that early? The reason why I knew we were going to lose at the end of the first quarter is because historically with Nebraska this year, we crumble in the second and third quarter. We did not have any insurance going into those quarters because usually we're up, 14-0, 10-0, 20-0, and then the team starts coming back and then we re-rally in the fourth quarter to get a close victory. I knew it was over the second we went in the second quarter and started crumbling like we always do. And you want to know the tough reality? You want to know why we crumble in the second and third quarter? It's not just inconsistency. It's not just bad luck. The reason why we crumble is because this coaching staff, Matt Rhule, Dana Holgorsen, John Butler, those three, they do not make adjustments. In game, out of game, they don't game plan to high level, but they don't make adjustments. So what happens is going into the second quarter, the opposing team, they make adjustments, right? Maryland made adjustments. Michigan State made adjustments. Minnesota definitely made adjustments. And Nebraska just sits there and does nothing. So that's what happens. And then, again, it goes into the fourth quarter. It's a very close ball game. Nebraska has to rally and say, you know what? Okay, we got to wake up now and get the close victory. But that didn't happen yesterday. because Minnesota made adjustments very early on. We did nothing. They're a more talented team than the teams we've played recently. That's why what happened. Okay, the more I watch this game, the more I think about this game, it's on the coaching staff more than anything. We don't have the players, that's true, but who recruited these players? Who brought in these players from the transfer portal? Who decided that, we only needed to bring in 2 offensive linemen? Who decided that we only needed to bring in 3 defensive linemen and only one of those is a good player in Williams Neri? Who decided that we shouldn't get another running back in the portal? Matt Rhule did. Matt Rhule is the one who decided, Gunnar Gattul is a stud and should be our right tackle. Matt Rhule made all these decisions. Matt Rhule's the one who game planned. It clearly wasn't focused on this game. He was focused on what uniforms we're wearing. He was focused on his podcast. So we got to cancel the podcast at this point. Nebraska fans, we have to revolt with that podcast. I'm tired of that crap. Okay, it's the middle of the season. You should be 100% committed to the team. You understand how many hours that takes away from game planning, from preparation? Okay, that is a multiple hour production. Him doing a podcast. We're not doing that anymore. You can do that in January. Not in October, in the heat of the season. On a short week, nonetheless. It was a short week and you still did your podcast. You still found the time to do bull crap. Anyways, that's just me being frustrated. Also, here's something I was thinking about. It's funny how many players regress when they get to Nebraska or throughout their careers in Nebraska, because it feels like Dylan Raiola is regressing throughout his career. It feels like Dane has completely regressed since he got to Nebraska. Rocco Spindler, while he played well, he's regressed. And a lot of players just get here and start playing worse, or they just play worse throughout their career. Marcus Buford has regressed over the course of his year. He was a lot better in 2022 than what he's in 2025. Isn't that crazy? Okay, that falls on the coaching staff. Okay, if players are regressing, that doesn't fall on the players, that falls on the development. And I also thought about this. Matt Rhule reminds me kind of a little bit of Scott Frost in a way. Like, I'm not calling them, the same apples to apples. But it's interesting. We do the same thing that we did with Scott Frost. Where when we had Scott Frost here, we would play up to good teams. We'd always play good teams very close. But we always play down to bad teams, right? When we go up against a bad opponent, it'll either be a very close victory or a very close loss. So that's what you saw yesterday. We played a terrible team, Michigan State, 2 weeks ago, and we barely beat them. We should have beat them by multiple touchdowns. That's why I was frustrated after that game. We should have beat Maryland by multiple touchdowns. We always play down to our opponents, always. That's the worst part, and that really falls on the coaching staff more than anything. And then here's what I'll leave you off on. We can't fire anybody. I know everybody's calling for Donovan or Dana, everybody, John Butler, I've seen people call for. We've already done this charade before. We have a brand new coaching staff this year. We have a new coordinator, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. We have new positional coaches everywhere. This is a brand new coaching staff from what it was 1 year ago today. So at some point, and here's the tough reality, if things just aren't clicking, it's not a coordinator issue. It's not a player, it's not a positional coach issue. You know what's the issue. I'm not even going to say it, but you know what the issue is. Again, if this continues to happen, we did the same charade under Scott Frost. We fired every coach imaginable, and then we sat there in year 4 and we're like, okay, maybe Scott's the issue, right? So listen, I want to make this very clear. I'm not freaking out. Like I've tried to be very real, very rational, very positive throughout all of this. People are calling for heads. I'm not doing that. So I'm telling you guys, it's only one loss. Again, it's only one loss. We're still 5-2. Okay. We're still 5-2. We still have a lot to look forward to this season. If we beat Northwestern, people are going to go back to being optimistic, and they're going to be talking about going 10-2 and making the playoffs, right? We just know how it is. People overreact about every single loss or every single win. But again, adjustments need to be made, right? The staff needs to be brutally honest with each other, know what needs to be done. We need to get rid of the podcast. We need to get rid of all the outside distractions, and we got to rock. We got to lock in. I told you guys the Northwestern game will define a lot for us. It really will. The Northwestern game will define a lot. I was not mad after yesterday's loss. I thought I kept my cool for the majority of it. I will tell you next week, if we lose Northwestern at home, I will not keep my cool. I will be incredibly disappointed. And that's where we start to have some tough conversations, because we can't sit here and do this again. I was okay with Matt Rhule forgetting how to win football games in year 1 in October, November. Okay, losing his last 4. I was okay with that, whatever. It's year 1. I shouldn't say I was okay, but it was whatever when in year 2 he lost 5 of his last 6. It is what it is. But if you go on another slide with this easy of a schedule in year 3, the big breakout year, that's not a good look for anybody. Not a good look for everybody, especially when we fired all the coordinators who were supposedly the issue. Again, I'm the biggest Matt Rhule fan there is. You guys know me, but I'm just calling a spade a spade. That loss was embarrassing, and we need it. We just can't shy away from it. We need to talk about it. Yeah, and again, it's not just this loss. It's the fact that we only beat Michigan State by what we did. We barely beat Maryland. Those are terrible teams. We should have beat them by a lot more. Is what, but apparently Matt Rhule was screaming at the team versus Akron that the standard's the standard. Okay, if you're screaming at the team versus Akron, maybe you should be screaming at the team versus Minnesota. All right, guys, those are my final thoughts. I'm not really going to discuss the Minnesota game any further. Again, we'll talk recruiting on the channel because there's a lot of recruiting going on. So there will be a recruiting update tomorrow. Good news there. We'll talk about a lot throughout the week, so trust me on that one. All right, guys, hit that like button if you made this far. Comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe as well. Getting so close to 14K. Go Big Red. Go Matt Rhule. That's my guy forever. See you in the next one.